young little girl, I grew up with secrets. And let me tell you, my mom never told me that the things that were going on in our homes were secrets. She never said, hey, this is a secret. My dad never told me this is a secret. But it was just me, my instincts, just looking at the way that they were moving. I knew that these were things that I should never talk about. You know, that I should never repeat at school, that my friends should never know about. These were my secrets. A little girl, 12 years old, with so many secrets to carry. And my mom did tell me one thing, and she said, everything that happens in this house stays in this house. Hi everyone, my name is Queen Albertus, and today I would like to welcome you to Breaking the Silence, our podcast. And it's been a long time coming. We've created a platform especially for you to help you break the silence. And in these coming weeks, I'll be breaking my silence. I have the privilege to kick it off, to break my silence. And my prayer is that I will inspire as many people as I can to break their silence. And my heart is to release my story into this world, because I believe that every story and every voice matters. Sometimes we go through things in life, and I've been through many different seasons in my life, and it shaped me into the woman that I've become. And at my lowest point, I never thought that I would be able to make it. But I came out of the fire, I came out of the valley, and I am so excited now to be, helping others by creating this platform, a platform that is gonna help you find your voice, because sometimes we think that we don't have a voice. Sometimes we think that we just go through things with no reason. But I believe that every voice, every story is a voice, and every story represents a soul. And I'm so encouraged to believe that as we dive into this journey of, being transparent and being vulnerable, that, you will find a safe place, a safe space here on this platform. That's what I want to create. I want to create a place where you could come and recognize yourself, because many times I felt alone in my journey. And many times I didn't know that there's so many people that, could find or could recognize themselves through my story. I thought that I would be the only one, going through a storm, going through a struggle. But now as I'm recovered, I begin to learn that there's so many people that could relate to what I went through. And that's something that inspired me to kick off this platform. And so today, this episode is called Yayi. Like I said, my name is Queen. My full name is Queen Suhaili. But at home, my parents, they would call me Suhaili. And my siblings, they couldn't really pronounce my name Suhaili, so they would say Yayi. And so Yayi is the firstborn child that my parents had. I grew up as the oldest one. My parents together, they have 5 children. And I'm a Dutch Caribbean girl. My parents are from Curaçao. And I live here in the Netherlands, in Rotterdam, Holland. So I grew up as the oldest child. And I don't know if you know, but the oldest child in a Caribbean home is very much responsible. She's been taught to be responsible. She's been taught to help her mom. She's been taught to take care of the children. And so Yayi was a little girl born in 1991. Grew up, my parents were 17 and 18 years old when I was born, so they were very young. And I really want to talk about Yayi because I think that my upbringing had a lot to do with how my story evolved as a grown woman. And sometimes we don't want to look back at our past. Sometimes we don't want to look back at, the things that were taught, at home. But I believe that in my story of breaking my silence, that my upbringing is so important. I think that if I'm going to tell you how my upbringing was, that you're going to be able to relate. I think that sometimes certain things are being done in your childhood, or sometimes you experience things in your childhood and you normalize it. And for myself, a lot of the things that I went through, I begin to normalize them. But anyways, I think the more I talk about that, the more you will be able to recognize where I'm heading towards. But so yeah, I grew up as the oldest child, And around my 3rd year, my mom was pregnant again for my brother. But my mom was very sick when she was pregnant for my brother. So my mom sent me to Curacao because my mom and dad, they were kind of separated in that time, but also my dad was in jail. Okay, so that's something that, some people would think like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're sharing that. But I think I'm going to break my silence. I'm going to really talk about things that, I should be embarrassed about, but I'm no longer embarrassed about. So I spent a long time in the Caribbean with my grandparents, and my father was in prison actually in Curacao. So on Saturdays I would visit him, but the moral of what I'm trying to say is that I was separated from my mom. I was separated from my father, and so in that season, even though my grandparents were really taking care of me and my family was taking care of me, it was a very crucial time of my life where I needed my parents. I needed to feel safe, but for that season in my life, I wasn't able to live with them. And so that creates already a little separation. And I need you to understand that the most important relationship that you have is the one with your mother, especially as a little girl. And yes, we always say, yes, the father is such an important, part of individual's life. And I really believe that that's the truth. But I also know that as an individual that you want to go back to that place where you felt most safe. And the place where you felt more safe in life is in your mother's womb. And in your mother's womb, you are safe. In your mother's womb, you are connected. In your mother's womb, you are being protected from the outside world. And when we get into this world, when we are born, we come out of the womb, and then we are, we are in this world, and we are no longer in that most safe place that we have ever been to. But throughout life, we all crave for that safe place. And I believe that the enemy he's always trying to bring a disconnection between children and, that the mother. I really see it in my own personal life that's always been a struggle, because you want to feel safe. You want to feel emotionally protected. You want to, you in your life, you crave to feel that intimacy that you felt in your mother's womb. And so me as a little girl, even though my grandparents did a great job, it did traumatize me to be separated from my mom for such a long time. And so a few years later, I think maybe it's not even years. I think maybe it's a year. But even though it's just a year, it's a very long time for a child to be separated. And so it creates, a tension in the relationship. And that's something that I had to discover the older I became. The older I became, the more I realized that season of my life, even though I didn't recognize it in that moment, it's been a very traumatizing season, because I also, every weekend, I had to visit my father in prison. I had to say goodbye to him. Can you imagine a little girl, having to cry and say goodbye to her father, seeing him behind bars? Like those settings, it's traumatizing. Even though it was normal in my life, it was a very crucial season in my life. And so I want to skip back to when I was maybe 12 years old. It was the 3 of us. I had 2 brothers in that time. And my parents were back together, and we were living our life here in this house, actually, where I'm recording. And I remember my parents, being taken away from us again because of their, illegal ways. And so in that season, I had to really take responsibility for my brothers and my sister, for my brothers in that season. And that's how I grew up, with a lot of secrets. So as a young little girl, I grew up with secrets. And let me tell you, my mom never told me that the things that were going on in our homes were secrets. She never said, hey, this is a secret. My dad never told me this is a secret. But it was just me, my instincts, just looking at the way that they were moving. I knew that these were things that I should never talk about. That I should never repeat at school, that my friends should never know about. These were my secrets. A little girl, 12 years old, with so many secrets to carry. And my mom did tell me one thing, and she said, everything that happens in this house stays in this house. And so that's how I grew up, with so many things to carry. And sometimes I think about it, and I realize, like, hey, my mom told me to keep things inside of the house, but it was not like we were sitting at the table at night and having dinner, and my opinion would be asked, or somebody would ask me, hey, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Like, in my life, honestly, to think about it, I realized that there wasn't really a lot of room to talk about emotions. There wasn't a lot of room to talk about being vulnerable. I remember one time I was crying in my room, and mom came into my room, and she was like, "What are you crying about? You're a little child. Little children have no reason to cry." But I felt like I had so many reasons to cry. I felt like I had so many reasons to be sad, but there was just no room for that. So in my 12 years of living life, I learned to also suppress my emotions, to neglect my emotions. So when I felt sad, or I felt angry, or I felt alone, I've learned, or I taught myself to not give in to those emotions. And I don't know about you, but I think that a lot of us, growing up in Black households, that there's a lot of taboo, that there's not a lot of room to talk about emotions. There's not a lot of freedom to even express yourself, to say, hey, I'm sad, or I'm feeling a certain way. I don't like this. I think in my household, even though my parents did the best of their ability to raise me, and I think they always wanted to protect me. They always wanted to do that. But I also realized that they could have not given me what they never had. And they were very young people, so I have grace on them, but I do have to say that really set me up for my decision making in life later on. So I want to encourage you to look back at your life, to think back about your childhood, to think back about the things that were taught to you or not taught to you. I think that my biggest problem, or my biggest challenge, was that a lot of things were not taught to me. My household was very strict, and I loved that. At 8 o'clock we were sleeping. Goede tijden, slechte tijden keken wij niet. We didn't look at that. In our house, it was like at 8 o'clock we're gonna go to sleep, and it was very strict and very organized. And I thank God for that. But at the same time, I realized that, hey, there were a lot of things that were never taught to me. And in those times, I didn't realize that later up in life, it was going to catch up on me. And boy, did that catch up on me, And I think that I think that I'm sharing all of this with you so that you can reflect on your childhood. Because sometimes you're angry, sometimes you're bitter, sometimes you're confused, sometimes you don't understand your emotions, you don't understand why you're not able to express your emotions. Sometimes you don't understand why you talk in a certain way. Sometimes you don't understand the way that you're moving. And I didn't understand that all the time. But when I started to think back about my childhood, I started realizing, okay, I think this is where it comes from. This is why I'm not able to show affection, And so I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you today, to think back about your childhood and really take a deep evaluation. Because I know also in Christianity, that we don't want to talk about family dysfunction, but I'm the first to say that, hey, yes, I come out of a dysfunctional family. And I love my parents and I respect my parents. And sometimes we think that we've been disrespectful when we think about, these things and we speak the truth. And I was writing something down the other day, especially when it comes to Christianity, because I know that a lot of us, we grow up with a taboo, like we have to respect our parents, and therefore we have to neglect, or we have to act like everything they did was fine. But not everything that they did was fine. And so I want you to look at a life of some Bible men and women of God that came out of dysfunctional families, so that you don't feel alone. Okay. So King David not only enabled the rape of his daughter Tamar and the murder of his son Ammon, he did nothing to confront or convict his son Absalom, who killed his own half-brother. I mean, talking about family dysfunction, okay? Then we're gonna talk about affairs. The same King David willfully committed sexual immorality with Bathsheba, another man's wife. I mean, talking about dysfunction, okay? Then we're gonna talk about incest. Lot got very drunk and fathered children with his own daughters. And we're talking Bible, guys. We're talking Bibles and we're talking breaking the silence. Okay, Abraham, Jacob, and King David took on additional wives, leading to family disaster. Okay, so they didn't like one wife, they wanted to have multiple wives. Okay, and then King Solomon built altars and temples for the pagan idols for his own wives. Okay, so I want to break the taboo. You know, I want to break the taboo. I want to encourage you as a Christian, you know, that we should not be embarrassed about family dysfunction. We should take a honest evaluation, you know, thinking back to where we come from and really take it serious, because those things, it sets us up and it shapes our character. It shapes our personality. It shapes our decision making if we do not take a deep evaluation. Okay, so this is me breaking my first silence. I think the more we're going to talk about it in the coming weeks, the more you're going to find out, you know, about my story. But this is just the foundation, you know, so you can understand that this is where I come from. I come from family dysfunction. I come from, you know, having half brothers and half sisters. I come from all of that. And I come from having secrets. I come from learning that everything that happens in the house stays in the house. That's where I come from. And that's why breaking the silence is such a big deal to me, because I'm letting go of all those rules, you know, and all those things that I've learned as a little child, as Yayi. And I'm growing up, and the more you will hear my story, the more you see the evaluation of Yayi turning into queen. This is my first episode of Breaking the Silence. I pray that you are inspired to not be embarrassed about what you went through. But, you know, I think that there's a lot of you that can relate. If you feel like, hey, this is me, I recognize it. I recognize, you know, myself in your story. I want to hear from you. I want to encourage you to keep breaking the silence by sharing this episode with others so that others can follow. I want to help as many people as I can, because I believe that there's many other Yayis out there that need to hear this word. So yeah, I can't wait to see you next week. And this was episode 1 of Breaking the Silence, Yayi, and I see you next week. Okay guys, I want to know who wants to break the silence with me, you know? So drop something in the comments. Let me know what you thought about this episode. If you find yourself in, you know, one of my, you know, seasons, something that I shared, if you were able to relate, please drop it in the comments so I can get to know you. I would like to respond to you. I'm trying to build a community, and I'm not able to do it without you. I need you to support it. I need you to drop something in the comments, and I need you to build this platform that we are trying to build right now, because we are trying to create a safe space, and we want to normalize breaking the silence. Aren't you with me? Don't you want to normalize breaking the silence? Don't you want to break the taboos and let go of all the shackles, you know, and just live your full, free self? You know, that's what I'm trying to do. And I also want to encourage you that, you know, we need you to follow, we need you sharing, and if you are subscribing, then we're building this together. So